While its origin story may have caused a small controversy, the Mark V Supra is a special car. It has great power, sharp handling, and hypnotic curves. When I drove the automatic model last year, I was impressed, but I felt like a pedal was missing. With that address, I want to know if the manual unlocks more character or if it gets in the way. With the current gen Supra bowing out right now, I'm taking one last look at this because I'm interested in buying one of these after depreciation does its thing. And this is the configuration that grabs my attention the most. Now, if you can do without the final edition's upgrades, you can get a manual transmission Supra for about $60,000 to start if you're lucky, but as equipped, this climbs over $70,000. And that is BMW M2 Nissan Z Nismo money. For that cash, this has a lot to prove. Before we continue, if you enjoy fun, detailed car content, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. It may seem small, but it helps open the door to more opportunities. Thank you. Whether you go automatic or manual, I think the powertrain is one of the biggest reasons why you pick up a Supra. Under the hood, you have BMW's 3-liter single-turbo inline-6. This engine makes 382 horsepower, which in my testing is good for a mid 4-second 0 to 60 without rollout, which puts it a few tenths behind an automatic version, but the 6-speed doesn't feel out of place here. Turbo lag is minimal past a low RPM. Once you get going, it punches hard, and at a mid-range RPM, it really doesn't have much delay. It has a more linear power band than that of the Nissan Z. It does a better job of keeping in boost and behaving predictably. It also does come with a limited slip differential as standard, and with its closed deck aluminum block and forged crankshaft, simple bolt-ons can add a lot of power to this without fear of catastrophic failures. Rev matching is pretty easy. Heel-toe downshifting also easy. And if you're wanting to streamline downshifts, this comes with auto rev matching, which I like that you can configure that off in the sport mode if you'd like. Though I would have also appreciated being able to configure the fake engine noise in the screen. While I'd personally install an exhaust with a little more voice, the inline-6 has a silky tone with a bit of a bark around back. Now the 6-speed manual itself, I think, matches the personality of the Supra very well. This gearbox reminds me a lot of 90s sports cars. So the gearing is appropriate for the power band of the B58. You got a lot of torque, so you don't need super aggressive ratios, even though I wish that I could row through a few gears without a fear of serving years. At the top of third gear, you are catching a felony in just about every state. The sensation of speed is still all here. It doesn't feel like in between shifts I'm getting out of boost. It feels dialed in. The shifter gives you short throws. It's got a good amount of heft to it, even if it isn't offering up the most mechanical feedback out there. Definitely nothing like the Miata, but it's precise and generally a lot of fun to operate. Smooth shifts are a little harder to master here than with the average modern manual. And getting used to this heavy clutch is another thing entirely. It feels like you're stepping in molasses at first. Thankfully, it is pretty easy to modulate. You got auto hill hold. I think this could definitely be someone's first manual transmission car, though if it is your first rear-wheel drive car, the power and the Supra's willingness to get sideways could be a little intimidating. Amateurs could also find themselves in a predicament if they try too quickly to grab first or second gear, as the reverse lockout is simply a little bit more effort. Once you're comfortable tapping into some of the Supra's potential, the TMW is a backroad beast. You have quick steering and a firm suspension, allowing for rapid turn-in. You also have just enough horsepower to get the tail end out at a moment's notice, and just enough grip to where there's an element of danger and a thrill of speed. And then once you add the manual transmission into the mix, the experience is more raw. The final edition I'm driving steps up the handling through stiffer bushings, a retuned suspension, revised alignment, larger front brakes, and so on, but all Supras feature adaptive damping that was updated in 23 for added stability. With the uneven pavement around me, I find the car to react better in its normal setting. I think it's a little bit over-damped in sport, which you kind of expect. That's for, maybe more of a smooth track kind of environment. But out here, I'm happy with the levels of control from the suspension. The steering is probably the only small shortcoming. So feedback is faint. Like, you're getting a little bit of road texture through the wheel, but as you start to push it to its limits, it's not telling you much about what's going on with the front end. It is at least accurate and well weighted, kind of light even in the normal setting. So I still have quite a bit of confidence chucking this through corners, but could it feel a little bit more engaging? Yeah. And because this has such a short wheelbase, this is also eager to rotate. It reacts to my throttle and braking inputs nicely. I can really tuck the nose in just by letting off the throttle. All of that adds up to an old school sports car experience, with the exception for the numb steering. The Supra feels wired. It doesn't give you the easygoing entertainment of the GR86 or the MX-5, but it still brings a smile to my face. Once the fun is over, the Supra isn't really clued in on that memo. It always feels in attack mode, even with adaptive damping. The suspension in normal mode is still stiff. It's going to transmit much of the road to you. You get a lot of vibrations, especially. It's also loud. As the speed picks up, you get a lot of road noise in here. Visibility floats between bad and There's also no 360 view camera, which makes the long nose a little bit of a liability in tight parking spaces. At least the turning circle here is absurdly tight. The tight steering also makes for a darty characteristic up at highway speeds. I found myself making a lot of small corrections to keep it on the intended path. And the driving aids are often frustrating. It feels like it's constantly vibrating the wheel whenever it can't figure out exactly where a lane is. Thankfully, they do allow you to customize what settings you want enabled and which ones you want turned off. And it does have auto stop start. That is going to default to on every time. The looks of the Mark V Supra do a great job of letting you know beforehand that this doesn't care about being sensible. The long front nose might make steep driveways an enemy of yours, but on top of making plenty of room for the B58 under the hood, it also gives this very traditional sports car proportions. It stands out anywhere it goes, and the fake vents make you feel extra cool. Now, the car that I have here is not only the final edition, but it also has the Dude Bro package, which includes this matte paint, which feels like it would be a nightmare to maintain, but I guess if you have a really nice garage and you're meticulous about your care, it does look great. And it also includes wind buffeting resistant mirrors. That's a problem that you'll actually run into with any other Supra, and usually it's solved in the aftermarket. It's kind of weird that Toyota acknowledges the problem and then only fixes it with this package. Anyway, This is not a vehicle that's really about features. In fact, you're not even going to have a trunk lid release on the outside. You only can open the rear through the key and on the inside. And the trunk itself, you know, it's present. I like that it's a hatchback. You could maybe fit some golf clubs in there. On the inside, I should also note, if you're over 6 feet, you can probably still wear a helmet too. So this would be a great track companion, and it should be pretty good at aging. Admittedly, for this price point, there's not a whole lot going on. The materials in here aren't too extravagant, nor are they too cheap. It's a noticeable step up from something like the GR86. There's no plastics that are too chintzy. You have some soft touch points around the cabin and this carbon fiber. I like it. Your HVAC controls are super straightforward. The screen quality is pretty good. It is still capable as a touchscreen, though the UI was very clearly designed with the physical control in mind. I actually like having a setup like this, but I do find it to be a little unintuitive. I prefer how Mazda lays it out versus BMW, because let's face it, this has nothing, none of this interior has anything to do with Toyota. Everything down to the chime is German, and with the cabin, I don't see that as a bad thing. And I do appreciate these seats, though they're not perfect. I could use a little bit more thigh support. They have 4-way lumbar adjustment with adjustable bolsters. That way everyone can get the hug they want. The cushions themselves are firm, as they should be in a sports car. And with the good ergonomics, I wouldn't mind taking a long trip in the Supra. It's also shaping up to be fairly trustworthy in the long haul. Now, because the Supra is a pretty low volume car, there's not a whole lot of data on it, but I did see in the early parts of the generation some people reporting oil consumption and a throttle hesitation, with other common issues being things like the HVAC blender door squeaks and rattles, which I've kind of heard some around the pillars and in the rear. And then some other owners have said that the windshield cracks easily. The B58 engine has been quite robust for BMW, with its most common issues being things like valve cover leaks, some coolant leaks. But look at owner reviews as a whole and you'll see most people have a pretty positive impression. I think if you're looking for a fast sports car, the Supra might be one of the most reliable options. It's very easy to jump to a conclusion with the Supra. Initially behind the wheel, I thought, yeah, this is good, but I'd rather be driving a Miata. As much as it sounds like I'm complaining that my steak is too juicy, this does feel at times to be too fast to have fun in. You're very quickly passing the legal limits on most roads. And without a whole lot of steering feedback either, if you find a place to push its limits, the Supra isn't an S-tier driver's car. Yet, the more that I got comfortable with it, the more I was reminded of its proposition. It feels and behaves like a small car, and with this weighing 400 pounds less than a BMW M2, I think that a lot of people who are going to take this onto a track would really appreciate what the Supra has to offer. And the manual transmission, in my opinion, rounds out the personality of the Supra. I will admit, I think the automatic feels a little more well-matched to the engine. The aggressive gearing and snappy shifts make it a more effective speed machine. If that's what you're after, you'll be very happy with the auto. The manual feels more well-matched to the package. This is an impractical, head-turning vehicle that keeps its drivers on their toes. The added involvement of the satisfying gearbox only bolsters the old-school sports car appeal. I was worried that this would be a half-assed, well, you asked for it, kind of transmission. Something with vague or sloppy inputs, terrible gearing, and just overall poorly mated to the power band. But that's not the case. It may fail to be the perfect stick shift or the perfect sports car, but I will miss the Mark V Supra, and I will keep an eye on the used market. Thanks for watching. And thank you to my channel members for helping me improve my videos. Consider joining for additional content, and I'll catch you in the next one.